I appealed for Spring if she comes up in as a participant.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second? Anybody?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks, Toby. Okay, and we have a few letters. We're going to do the same thing as we're really going to start sticking to this. So we're a few letters that we're going to have 15 minutes for public comment, 3 minutes per letter. Toby, if you have your phone nearby, can you time us? That
sure.
This is just a way for everybody to get a chance to get heard. But I do want to say for people who are listening, for any public out there, that the most important thing that happens when we get these letters is that the board all reads them. That's when the impact happens, is when we all read them and we really absorb what the writer is saying. Reading them out loud is important as well. But for me, I don't know, I should say for me, the most important part is me reading them, not being read out loud. So if your letter doesn't get read out loud, if your entire letter does not get read out loud, it's just not being heard auditorily. It is being absorbed by the board members.
And importantly, it goes into public record as well.
And it goes into public record, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good point, Toby. Okay, so Slade.
Right, so this may be one of the, it may not be, because we're gonna be kind of hybrid. We'll have this in discussion later. Let me just start with public comment from Bob Jones. March 11th, 2021. Why is the school board largely silent and allowing McSheehy, Rock, and Allison to seemingly make it up as they go in regard to the teaching approach in the hybrid? The hybrid return to school has a huge and glaring gap that requires immediate, clear, and decisive direction on how teachers are conducting classes Mondays through Fridays. Why are teachers allowed to choose their own approach to the distance learning component of the hybrid model? This is 60 to 100% of the school time for most students, and leadership is unengaged in punting this to the teacher. Pardon. McSheehy, Rock, and Allison have spent more time planning and describing lunch than they have the actual teaching delivery method. It is beyond my understand how the school board can sit idly by trusting in these three to get it right, when they have refused to get involved and allow teachers to decide on their own and likely blame them when things don't work out. Today, students have access to 5 days of video instruction. Once the hybrid model starts, no one can tell me what's amount of instruction students will get, other than telling me, apostrophe, everyone will get to the finish line, apostrophe. Why would different math teachers teach their classes differently? Why give them that option? What standard class subject would benefit from teachers taking different approaches? I can't think of a single one, and I challenge you to name a single one. I'll follow up with each board member because you should already know this answer if you're doing your job correctly, as should McSheehy, Rock, and Allison. McSheehy, Rock, and Allison need to use their education expertise and tell teachers how to conduct their classes. Their current laissez-faire approach is unacceptable. VISD doesn't need 3 highly compensated administrators to coordinate lunch and restroom protocols. The board needs to step and demand clear directions for teachers to deliver consistent and effective teaching to all students. It's been a year to consider this. This is what McSheehy is paid to do. He's had a portion of 2,000 plus hours on the clock to consider this, as have Rock and Allison. Have them lead the teachers or find someone else that will. Bob Jones. Thank you, Mr. Jones. The next public comment will be read by David Hackett. March 11, 2021. Dear Board, last August, it was apparent that Superintendent McSheehy and his administrators had failed to adequately plan for distance learning. Despite an entire summer to prepare, they had done next to nothing, and the district suffered from their last-minute ad hoc approach with crucial details left in the wind. This board said nothing. Now it is apparent that Superintendent McSheehy and his administrators have failed to adequately plan for hybrid learning. Despite an entire school year to prepare, at last night's forum, they could not answer basic questions about how hybrid learning will operate or how equity will be maintained for students who continue distance learning. This board hasn't even bothered to place the issue on its agenda. In place of responsibility and accountability, we hear made-up terms like asynchronous learning, which is short for the students will have to figure it out on their own. Rather than plans and details, we're told that teachers will somehow make up for the superintendent's lack of diligence. All of this exists because this board has given up its oversight role. I see that you will be evaluating Superintendent McSheehy's job performance tonight during the secret part of your meeting. Rather than giving him yet another contract extension, perhaps it is time to explore other options. After all, oversight that starts late is probably better than oversight that never starts at all. David Hackett, Vashon Island, email address, and then his phone number. The third public comment is from Barbara Gale. Let me bring it up. Great, March 11, 2021. Dear board members, I was dismayed at last night's Q&A to hear questions about remote learning unanswered in many ways that made clear that remote learning portion of hybrid has not been made a priority for our students. Remote learning will represent 60% of fourth quarter learning for all VHS and McMurray students and 100% for students who will remain remote only. The Seattle Times has reported that a much higher percentage of local BIPOC students and students with health issues will remain in remote only learning than their white, healthy counterparts who are returning to hybrid models. What are your specific plans to ensure the students who attend remote only receive the same quality of instruction as in-person hybrid students? What are you doing to prioritize equity for students who must remain at home? To avoid creating a school system that's further segregated by race, districts will need to provide long-term virtual options, choices that don't shortchange those who choose to stay at home. It looks like there's a link. Who will actually go back to school? Many families of color, kids with health issues don't feel confident. Sincerely, Barbara May Gale, PhD. And I appreciate everybody's public comments this evening, and that would conclude the 3 public comments submitted.
Great, thank you, Slade, for that. And so would you have a bunch of things to talk about? So
absolutely. So
do you have your video working by chance?
Is my video working?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it is. Thanks for, I never turned that on. Here we go. How's that?
Much better. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Toby. That was appreciated. Okay, gosh, let me get to my next tab here. Okay, I will start off as customary with a land acknowledgement. Puyallup people lived here long before and during the colonization of the Americas and the westward expansion of the United States. And we recognize these indigenous people of the Salish Sea, their displacement, dispossession, and continued presence. As we reflect on the past and move to the future, let us be reminded that our school district sits within the traditional lands of the Puyallup people. Okay, there is quite a bit in tonight's kind of school year update. I'm going to move through my update and then actually ask Rebecca Gertzel and perhaps John Hodgson, I'm not sure if he's joining us tonight, to reflect and share their in-person learning experiences to date. But before we do that, I want to share some information. So in terms of COVID activity, as we know that COVID activity rates have been on a downward trend. Just to give you an example, back in our last board meeting on February 11th, rates were 160 out of 100,000 in King County, according to the Department of Health metrics. And now they are 84 out of 100,000. And they have kind of, this downward trend has plateaued somewhat. But I believe everyone may have heard or may not have heard the recent announcement from Governor Inslee that we would see movement to phase 3 on the 22nd of this month. So I'm not exactly certain, I'll admit that, in terms of what implications phase 3 may kind of how that may impact our district. But it is kind of heartening to hear that these rates are continuing to go down, hospitalizations continue to go down. So that's great news for us and great news for our island. Staff vaccination. This has been fairly quick in terms of the news coming. A couple weeks ago, we had CMAR had some doses that were going to expire, and working with Rick Wallace and the EOC and MRC, we were able to get 45 of our teachers vaccinated on a Saturday afternoon. Shortly following that, on a Thursday, we were able to get over 60 of our staff vaccinated through CMAR once again. Then we saw Biden's announcement and then Governor Inslee's announcement prioritizing school staff and preschool workers. So currently right now we have over 70% of our school staff vaccinated with at least their first dose. And that number could be higher because I'm not sure we have everything updated from Monday and Tuesday's vaccination efforts with the pharmacy. Okay, and so big shout out to CMAR and a big shout out to Tyler Young from the pharmacy. Kind of any questions about kind of COVID activity or staff vaccination? While I'm just going to kind of pause to a couple of these statistics. Okay, great.
I just want to add my gratitude that we were able to get that accomplished for the sake of our staff and students and return to school effort. So much appreciation for all our partners.
Yeah, absolutely. Next on my kind of list of announcements, our last board meeting was an entire month ago. And so since that time, I want to recognize the exceptional work that our admin team and VEA and VSP labor leadership completed, and which resulted in newly ratified MOUs on February 26th and 27th. And these MOUs were really focused on newly kind of minted safety measures, which included, extended review of ventilation, established building safety teams, reporting methods, really all focused towards the safety of our students, staff, and families and community. And so it was a lot of time spent, a lot of resources, but well worth it. And I made a commitment early on to do this work together with our VEA and VSP labor leadership. They made the same commitment. And so it was from that commitment that we were able to open up our pre-K and K in the kind of interim between our last board meeting and this board meeting. So we'll hear more from Rebecca about how that opening has gone. But I'm just super excited and just very grateful about the partnerships that we've been able to kind of continue, the relationships that we've been able to strengthen during this process. And again, all with kind of a consensus around what's going to keep our folks safe. And so thank you, VEA and VSB labor leadership and our admin team as well. Second, next up on is ESSER 2 funds. And so I sent an email to the board today, but I think our public should know that before release of ESSER 2 funds, and these are extended federal dollars that will be filtered or kind of moved through the state and then through OSPI, which are meant to backfill expenses related to COVID. Our ESSER 2 funds were all contingent upon a Vashon School reopening progress report to the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction. So I submitted that report in front of the March 1st deadline, and that report, that progress report, that plan was recently approved today, which then translates to Matt and Kay working through the grant process with Stephanie Spencer, Dr. Spencer, and capturing or reimbursing, getting reimbursement for some of the COVID expenses that we've been experiencing. So we expect right now approximately $471,000 in ESSER 2 funds. That number could go up depending on some contingencies with OSPI. However, we believe that we'll be able to fully capture every dollar of those funds coming back into the district. So kind of, I guess, thank you for the national leadership behind this, the state leadership, and then the folks on the ground floor who are putting this into action. Any questions about SR2 funds or MOUs?
Yeah, related to the SR2 funds, those are reimbursement for expenses that we've already incurred, as opposed to new funds that we can spend however we want, correct?
Correctly, and that kind of will bring me to, like, we had a budget advisory board meeting today that was that kind of was meant to bring everybody up to speed, kind of continue our mission of improving fiscal literacy amongst all of our stakeholders. And so we shared today that the SR2 funds will most likely be spent this year and into next year's budget. So those will be kind of calculated in both years. And there's also, because of the government's passing of the recent legislation, the $1.9 trillion, we're expecting another $1.9 billion to come into our state, which will then kind of go through maybe a similar process of being distribution process through OSPI, through the legislature, and then through OSPI. So there will be an SR3, or we're counting on an SR3, and those funds will be able to used to cover expenses up to 2023. So. Okay, so also just to let the board know that we are, Stephanie, Catherine, and I met today to discuss extended learning opportunities for our students for this summer and next summer. And so we believe we have a pretty strong framework. We're going to present the framework to our leadership team on Monday next week. And then at that point in time, we'll share it with our staff and families in the upcoming weeks before spring break. And so at the March 25th meeting, we will have more information to share with you in terms of our extended learning opportunities for students, which will include both efforts to offer opportunities for students to earn proficiencies and credits in credit-bearing classes, but also enrichment classes, opportunities to engage in the school, with the school district over the summer. And we're looking at a tentative date right now from July 25th, the last week of July, to the third week of August. But we'll share more about these at the March 25th board meeting. And Vashon High School in McMurray, we had a Q&A last night, really well attended. I think we had about 140 to 145 folks attending that meeting. It's an interesting meeting to have because there's lots of questions, and we're over a month away from any return of secondary students. So there's still quite a bit of planning that's in progress, which I believe is unsettling to some parents and families. But overall, I was heartened to see at the end of the meeting in the chat over and over again lines of thank you, from our community. I know Danny, Gus, and Greg has spent considerable amount of time with our teacher leaders in trying to orchestrate the best learning model for hybrid learning. And I'm excited about it. We've proven over and over again that our staff is kind of up to the task. And we've seen that in parent surveys and student surveys. And I believe our fourth quarter is going to be our strongest quarter and kind of in line with what I consider a year of the comeback. So I'm excited. And at the March 25th meeting, once again, our secondary admin team will be ready to share more details because parents are still completing surveys. There's still so many details that are left unknown, which really, it's just the natural process. Rebecca Gertel was in this same process, about a month ago. We know that we have the capability and the staff and the ingenuity and the commitment to our kids and families that we will have a robust program in place. And so, but I understand your parents are invited to a Q&A and they want to have all the answers. And I think we've learned through COVID, I'll be the first to admit, we don't always have the answers. And that's just, that's been a part of this learning process. And, but, you know, together with our teachers, our paras, you know, all of our support staff, we've been able to put together some really robust programs. And I know that we'll be able to do the same for our secondary students when they return during that week of April 12th. Any kind of questions so far about that? I have a few more details to share in our kind of school year update. Yes. So I'm not looking at faces right now. I'm just looking at my report. So I might not be able to read, you know, who unmutes or whatever. Okay, a few other things, and then I will turn it over to Rebecca to share with her report for returning to in-person learning. I'm going to give a big shout out to Sarah Powell. I sent an email earlier today and I posted on our Facebook page that she is our newly minted National Board Certified Teacher recipient. And so hopefully at some point in time, we can invite her to an in-person meeting. She's a Spanish teacher at VHS, and it takes a significant amount of effort to receive your national, you know, your MBCT certification. And I just have a deep respect for what Sarah does and the experiences she provides for our students. And I would encourage any teacher in our district, and I've already had a couple teachers inquire about, you know, what is that experience and how can I be a part of that. But a big shout out to Sarah Powell, and I'm going to say probably to her colleagues as well who supported her throughout this process. So it's always wonderful to see our teachers, you know, kind of attain this high level of certification. And last but not least, a big shout out to Susan Mccabe. So she's been our communication specialist now for 3, 4, maybe 5 months. And she's just been a wonderful addition. One of our strategies, communication strategies in the district has been to share our story, what makes Vashon unique. And through Facebook and through the Beachcomber, Susan has provided so many wonderful stories about our students, our seniors, our staff, and through Facebook and Beachcomber. And, you know, recently you know, if you go on our Facebook page right now, you'll see Jennifer, who is one of our food services staff, she's our star baker. There's just a wonderful write-up about her. And just to give you an idea of what that might look like. So on that page, she says that Susan Mccabe writes, before COVID, the bell would ring on Pizza Friday and the halls in all 3 schools smelled like pizza. And I'm going to exclamation point that. It's hard to be in the school on Pizza Fridays. You just start getting hungry. Then you'd hear this thunder and feel the floor shaking as kids ran for the cafeteria. It was music. And so these are words from Jennifer Brenner. And again, she's our district baker. And what a wonderful you know, staff member who has our kids and the love of cooking, you know, at the core of her work. So, but from all of this, we are now on our Facebook page over 500 followers, and this was a goal that I thought we might reach at the end of this year. But here we are in March with you know, folks just really tuning into the wonderful work that our staff are providing and the talents of our students. And so I just want to give a shout out to Susan Mccabe, who has really, you know, been contributing to the lion's share of that work. So any questions before I turn it over to Rebecca? Because that will kind of wrap up my school year update.
You want to have questions about the kind of preparedness at McMurray High School now, or after Rebecca presents?
Well, I would ask the board to hold off on those questions until March 25th, when we're going to have a pretty comprehensive report from the McMurray and high school team. I'm welcome to answer any questions now, obviously, but as I've scheduled, I put the focus on this board meeting at Chautauqua and the March 25th meeting for McMurray and the high school. But I will welcome any questions if you would like to ask them as well.
March 25th to mid-April when we go back feels pretty compressed given the feedback from the Q&A session last night, where it kind of felt like, there's still so many things to define. A lot of the comments seem to be that, like, well, I don't know, the teachers will figure it out, but it's not clear to me what the pathway is to support the teachers in getting there. So I don't know if that merits an interim conversation between now and the 25th.
Sure. And I would characterize a lot of the comments. So I would just caution the board to generalize 2 or 3 comments to a lot, but I'm welcome to answer. I'm appreciative of the position that Danny and Gus and Greg have, how they've included the teachers in the decision-making. That's not a deficit for me. That's a positive, that's a strength for us. And so now we have many teachers who are piloting different models of instruction in preparation for that April 12th to, that kind of however that stagger star is going to look for our middle school and our high school team. And that really is the collaborative approach that I would recommend. And I believe that we are on track. If you would have asked Rebecca, over a month before March 1st, what's the plan? I think we'd be in the same position. So I think there may have been an expectation that Danny and Greg would have kind of unveiled a fully formed plan, and that may have been a communication error on our part. We wanted to be able to share as much as we know at that time so that parents could make as fully informed decision about their decisions coming back. What I heard, Toby, was a lot of questions being answered, and I'm not sure if you were present or not, but
we weren't able to get into the meeting. I just hope as a district that we're leading from the front of the pack and supporting our staff and not leading from behind. That's my biggest concern.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not even in front, Toby. I don't even want to be in front of the pack. I want to be side by side. Our teachers maybe, I wouldn't say they're the most impacted by these decisions, but they definitely have a stake in making these decisions with us. And so, and this has been the process that we've been following since we've been in distance learning. The teachers and our parapros and support staff, they are professionals, and we really respect their experience and commitment to our kids. And they've shown over and over again that they are up to the task of providing exceptional experiences for our kids. And I, as I said in my report earlier, I don't expect anything less. And so as we know more, that's why I think, by March 25th, we will know more as we're closing in on that date, that we'll be able to share more details. But there's the planning that has gone on in the past. It's been a year more of planning, and so we have not been on our heels as maybe suggested by some community members. We have been locked in arm in arm with our staff members and really hoping to provide, again, the most rigorous and best experience for our kids with a focus on equity. And there may be some assumptions out there that maybe our folks who are most marginalized will not be participating in our in-person experiences. That's not what we've been seeing at Chautauqua so far. So we don't want to make any assumptions. That's why we're in the middle of planning. We have our parent surveys out right now. They're going to be due on the 12th. And when we receive those surveys, then we'll know more. But it's going to be very difficult for our teachers and our paras and administration to plan without information from our parents. And so right now we have about 600 of our surveys returned, of approximately 750. But we're going to be doing our due diligence to track down, just like Rebecca did at Chautauqua, track down every parent, every family to determine what they are wanting for the upcoming dates. That's going to take some significant manpower, as you can imagine. But we are going to do our best to determine what is the program that our families would like to participate in, and then shape those experiences to meet those needs. We are fully focused on equity, and again, our experience has shown that most of our families who receive special services want to return to in-person at Chautauqua. I don't know what to anticipate, but right now, just from the surveys we've received 80% who want to return in person and 20% who would like to remain remote. I don't know how that shakes out kind of demographically, but it's an increase in person over the 70-30% that was at Chautauqua. I think that may have something to do with vaccinations, quite frankly. Folks feeling a sense of assurance, maybe some security about our staff and the care that they share for the community care for our staff, knowing that our staff has had opportunities to access vaccination. So
related to equity, it'd be interesting to see how, when we define the cohorts that come back, if they're, to make sure that they're balanced in terms of the demographics, as opposed to just drawing from a hat. I don't know what sort of work around that, but to me that seems like that would be an interesting lens, and we have time to consider that.
Certainly, from an operational point of view, there is no drawing from the hat, but it is going to be segmented by alpha, and that's really with the primary goal of keeping families together. If you start doing too many kind of twists and turns, to try to make two cohorts, it can get kind of difficult. But we will keep families together, and yeah. So, but again, there will be a lot more information shared at the March 25th meeting.
And then Slade, is there going to be? I'm assuming that there's another Q&A for parents. I know Rebecca had.
Right.
It seems Rebecca was doing one like every other day. It feels like.
Right. There will be another one probably that last week of after that board meeting. There'll be another Q&A that last week of March, kind of early April.
Right.
I want to say the 28th, but we haven't set it yet. But it'll probably be kind of a similar time on that Wednesday.
Okay.
I penciled it in, but haven't inked it yet.
I think it's important for people to remember that these things happen in a sequence. And what's happened right now is that we've opened and are opening the elementary school, and we're contemplating opening the middle and the high school. And in order to open them, we need to know how many kids are going to be there physically. And so the surveys that are going out right now are asking that question. And in order for parents to make that decision, they have to feel good about the situation they're sending their kids into. So most of the planning to this point is focused on safety and COVID safety, so that parents had those answers when trying to determine whether to send their kids to school or not. Because once they make that decision, as a reminder, they won't be able to change their mind. They'll be stuck with it for all of fourth quarter. So that is why there hasn't been a lot of academic detail in the planning so far, because we're trying to work on the safety first. And then once we know who's going to come, we can plan on how big the class sizes are and how to allocate the teaching staff. And once we have that in place, then we can decide, what the individual class times and teaching methods are going to look like. So maybe everyone's anxious to get all the answers at once, but it just doesn't happen that way. It happens in a sequence of planning steps. So I did attend the Q&A last night, and I thought it was overwhelmingly positive. And I think there were people that expected to have further, more extensive planning information at that time, but that's just the first, are you interested and do you feel safe meeting? And there'll be a sequence of upcoming meetings that get into the nitty gritty of the additional details as we get closer to opening and returning students to the middle and high school. So stay tuned. We're not done yet.
Right. No. Sabette, did you want to add anything? Because I know you attended last night as well.
No, I just was going to, I agree, Reagan, with what you were saying. I mean, there were some really good questions. I mean, that's what the great thing about those Q&As is that people get to ask questions, and that way staff get to hear about what's making people anxious.
Right.
And that's just where we are right now. It's just,
right.
There's a lot of unknowns, and, you know, you can't plan if you don't, if 50% of the school coming, or it's 80, or is it 100%, and all those numbers inform the next decision. So Reagan, I agree. Right, so let's, unless anybody else has questions, I want to keep moving on.
Right. So without further ado, I will ask Rebecca and Jody will work with the PowerPoint. And Rebecca can report out on our first weeks of kindergarten. And so I know I want to just thank everyone, first of all, for getting our students back to to our classrooms, to be with our amazing staff. And I know some board members were able to take some time to be part of that welcoming back of our students. So thank you as well. And just let everybody know, on Monday, we're going to have our first through third graders coming back. And so at 9 o'clock, I would encourage any board member, if they want to kind of see a little bit larger, kind of section of our students coming back and see how these kind of, how our protocols and systems are being pressure tested. It would be a great experience. So
it was super fun to be there that first day of the kindergarten.
I know, huh? Okay. Yeah. Okay, Rebecca.
Thank you. I think come at 1 o'clock also. 9 o'clock.
Right. I know.
2 opportunities. Although come at 10 till. Don't wait till 9. Come at 10 to 9 or 10 to 1. Right. I am excited to share about Chautauqua Elementary. It has been such a joy to see students back in the building, and it's been a heavy lift for us all indeed. And just to follow up on what you have been talking about is, as you know, in development of our plan, we couldn't really establish like how many distance learning classrooms were we gonna have until we knew from parents how many were coming back. And so our plans were shifted around the input we got from parents. And so there were some things in our plan that kind of had to wait until we established that program. And I feel really solid about the program we have established now, as we did with our distance learning program. Like, I think we worked hard in collaboration with our teachers and our school staff to come up with a really good distance learning program. And I think we have come up with a fabulous hybrid learning program. And so I'm really excited to share more about that tonight. That's my next slide.
Jody, you're right. We'll scroll down.
Thank you. So it has taken a lot of work to overhaul our systems. Luckily, I like planning. And so that's been a good thing. I think I started my career planning the ELL program in the Tahoma School District. And then I ended up developing a high school in a school in Costa Rica. And so I didn't think I'd have to like overhaul a brand new system here on Vashon, but this was like a whole new idea of schooling. And so it's been a lot of planning, and I'm lucky to have a really great team. The office team, Kelly and Jillian, John and I are like working very closely together, working out every little detail of plans, along with Christina and Lisa. Like, we're innovating. Today we had a meeting and came up with a really fabulous, innovative way to get first graders to their bus. And so it's just been every little thing going places. Like, how do you arrive at school with COVID protocols? How does a first grader who's never been in their classroom find their class? Like, there's just these things about what doors do they enter so it's not too crowded when you come in. So like every little thing about arrival and dismissal we have the school dismissal manager where we have a car lane now so that parents aren't walking to the building. And so, different ways of arriving and dismissing kids, moving within the building so that we've got, stickers down with 6-foot spacing throughout anywhere they might be lining up. And so these things that we used to take for granted have taken a lot of planning. And so that's part of our protocols: distancing, desk spacing, cleaning, hand washing. How do you eat a snack at school? When can you take a sip of water? Like, all that stuff had to be reworked. Like, yeah, you can take your mask off and drink water. It's okay. But like figuring that stuff out is a lot of conversations. Materials, we had to order a lot of new materials. We got recess bags with balls instead of shared materials. Now there's AM and PM cohort materials. And that's true in the classroom. That's true with, we used to give out soul strings for kind of motivation, and now we're moved to stickers. I mean, it's just like all these little things have taken a lot of time and planning, and it's been a lot of teamwork. If you have a chance to go onto our website under hybrid, you will see we've made a ton of videos that we've shown in classrooms and sent to parents to help students transition. Our counselor and our support staff have helped to make the videos. John and I, like, we've all how to do an attestation, what it's going to be like when you first come to school, how to find your class, like lots of videos in preparation. So if people didn't make it to one of our Q&As, you know, they can find that information on the website. And we just had to make new schedules for everything. So schedules for our basic school schedule, which includes our new recess with recess zones. So each class can have their own recess time, specialists. And that means, afternoon specialist time while they're in their remote part of the day. All of our math support and reading support they need to schedule for students that need support that maybe some are in AM, some are in PM, and some are distant. So all of a sudden you're trying to put reading level groups together that accommodate 3 different schedules. And so all that has been super complex, and it's taken a wonderful team working together to make that happen. And that's the same with special education and with our preschools. Like, it's just the level of complexity is pretty astounding. Thank you, Jody. We could, next slide. And so I just got masking, sanitizing, ventilation. I mean, those systems are actually some of the more simple ones to put into place. We know what we're doing, and we get that set up. We are fortunate. We've got sinks in every classroom already. We have a great ventilation system at Chautauqua. And so there's some things we were really fortunate with the way that the school was set up. And fortunately, like, masking has not been a problem in kindergarten, just like the prediction was. Like, you know, you worry about masks and it's just not that much of a problem. Like, kids have gotten used to it. This has been going on since March, and like, they know how to wear a mask. And if they come with a poorly fitting mask, like, we can give them one that fits better. I mean, it's the masking has not been such a problem at all at school. And same with 6-foot spacing. Like, you can see we made a little map of like the different recess areas on the playground. We borrowed desks from McMurray for the classrooms that have tables, so we could have desks with spacing in the classroom. We painted. We have a parent, Beth Lindsay, actually made these little orca stencil for us, so we could spray paint orca spacers outside the classroom, and then we've got spacers inside the classroom with these fun little paw prints on them. And so that part, you know, it took a lot of planning, took a lot of work from facilities, but even just today, actually, we're adding more orca spacers where we found we needed some for when the kindergartners get off the bus and they wait to get walked up to class. And so, you know, these last couple of weeks, you know, we keep figuring out we needed parallel lines of orca dots where the 2 preschools exit. And so we just keep adding and adapting as needed. Next slide. Arrival and dismissals. I don't know how much you really probably don't want to hear as much. You can't imagine the amount of hours that we've spent talking about arrivals and dismissals, but it's been a lot. And so we've got an attestation program that you know of that was designed from our tech team here, that we scan kids' cards in. We've got new ways of the dropping off in the front and picking up in the back, and just all these systems, take a lot of time, but it's been working really smoothly. So that's the great thing about it, is like, it actually worked and it worked well. So far it's only been like 18 kids in the morning, 18 in the afternoon, but we're ready for the ramp up. So that's been going really well. And so our first weeks, arrivals. So it's funny, we've got like the whole system working and it's just a few kids. So we've got like all these buses pulling in and then just like 10 kids coming off, because it's been a slow start with kindergarten only, but it's been going really, really well. And so we're really pleased with the systems we put in place. You can see we got the car line in the back is different now. We're good keep than before. And so our first weeks, you can go up, Jody, you're right. You're on track here. So we've got our kindergarten teachers. We got Ms. Long, Amanda Long, and Carolyn Stearns. And the wonderful thing about seeing them in action, the same thing, actually seeing them online, I could see like, oh my gosh, they're doing so much of the stuff they do in class on the screen. And now I get to see it again in person. It's like, oh, they're just doing school. It's just so refreshing to see. It's just like it's kindergarten. And it's the first days. So there's teaching about hand washing and lining up, and just like you would in any day of school. So in that picture with the kids in it, they're standing on dots, lining up on their way to recess, and they're being taught about the zones of regulation and checking in on, whether they're in the green zone when they come. And I mean, just things that they would normally do, they're doing in class now. And that's been just super exciting to see. And so you can see what's not normal is they're in desks. And so they're like quieter than usual, and they're sitting more than they usually would. But when you see them playing outside, it just looks so normal, and it's been wonderful. And today was exciting, actually. So we're in the end of the second week, like there was more play happening. And so I went into Amanda's room today, and like this one kid had like Lincoln logs in a tub on his desk, and he built a tower, and someone else had Legos in a tub on their desk, and 2 kids were on the rug, and 2 kids were over there. And so it was more distanced, and there was more individual stuff in individual tubs, but like they're all playing, and then they do the cleanup song and they put it away. And so it was like very much like kindergarten. And so that they already earned a pajama day from their little smiley face stickers, and the other class was about to earn popsicles from like 200 more stickers. And so like exciting stuff was happening. And as you can see from this slide, so we have 2 in-person classrooms, like a morning and an afternoon, so 4 sessions. And then we've got in person, so 2 half-day sessions, 4 classrooms. And then we have 1 classroom full of distance learners that are also still doing wonderfully. And their families needed to stay distance, and we were able to provide a great program for them. So it's wonderful to be able to still continue that high quality distance learning that we've been providing for the people that need it, and also providing an in-person experience. So that's been pretty great to see. And also Pretzel Preschool. So we have 2 preschool programs, as you know, and so they both increased their time these last 2 weeks with kindergarten. So our ECAP is now full days. So they've still split their class in half. So this class size is smaller, but now the kids are staying all day. And our developmental preschool, we brought a lot more kids in. And so that we needed to revamp our play yards. And so we split the yards, so the cohorts aren't mixing, and we expanded to grassy regions for both preschools. So we have this wonderful property. We were able to expand more. We were very lucky that we got a lot of PIE grants. So thank you for those donations. We brought an extra sandbox, extra climbing materials. And so we really expanded those outdoor areas, because the hope was they would be able to stay outside a lot, and the weather's been very cooperative. So kids have been playing outside a lot with wonderful new resources. And we also brought back quite a few more special education students into our buildings. And so they've been playing, and they've been learning, and it's just neat to see. It's wonderful. Actually, the half day has worked out really nicely. We're like, it's only 2 hours and 40 minutes, but it's been good. Actually, after being out of school for so long, it's kind of a nice start coming back with half days. And so we found that to be actually a really nice amount of time. I know it's short for parents that are driving both ways, so I get that, but it's been a good start for students. And here you have, this kid in the car is super funny. So he is his mom, they're dropping off his little kindergarten sister, but it's 9 in the morning. He's like, my class is starting. So he's in the car with his like class on an iPad, like this teacher there listening to his 9 o'clock class for distance learning until he starts on Monday. But that was just so classic. And so that going on while still it's just fun to be in someone's classroom and see this in-person learning, and then go back to my office and log in and see some kids on their classrooms with great learning still happening at home. So that's just been neat to see. And so now John Hodgson, our assistant principal, is going to come on and talk a little bit about, I know the board always asks like, what have been the biggest challenge? So I thought I'd just write some up in a slide. So he's going to join and talk a little bit about all the changes and challenges that we've been grappling with during this transition.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. It's amazing for this little opportunity to talk to you tonight. Of course, you just had all these wonderful pictures and scenes of joy, and then now I come on with a page of text. So isn't that just my luck? But anyway, it's been quite the journey. I think it's been a long, winding road, as Rebecca's really set out there. But there is a pot of gold at the end, and we've got it in sight, and we're running towards it with arms open, because it's just such an exciting moment. But as Rebecca said, there's been plenty of challenges along the way, and really kind of touching on the conversation you're having prior to this about middle and high school, you know, the staffing piece was our start game. You know, we had to personally figure out who does what, you know, who's going to stay distant, who's going to be in person. And in some cases, we're going to ask someone to do like half and half. So maybe half the day you'll be teaching in person, and the other half of the day you're going to be teaching remote kids. So just these complex situations that we had to plan out really to meet the student needs once we got that data back. And also, in addition, kind of deciding what are all those 3 different roles, what do people do? And, you know, how, because you can imagine distance teaching is different from in-person teaching. So like, how do those responsibilities shake out? And the same thing for our para educators as well. You know, who we've got coming back into the building and when, and also, you know, what are our pressing needs, and how do the staff that are there fit into those roles? And when they're in those roles, what PPE do they need in different parts of the day? So there's so many micro details, as Rebecca set out, that we've really had to look into. And then thanks to facilities, shout out to Kevin and Dickerson and his team, just fabulous support. They've really just answered our call whenever we've had them in, and Kevin was there moving tables around with us again. So just today. So, you know, it's constantly ongoing. We're so thankful to have that team support behind us. And of course, Gillian is madly ordering supplies as numbers change and fluctuate. She's on Amazon checking this out. And, you know, it's a continuous kind of job for her just to manage the changes that we're going through right now. And with that, obviously, with the staffing kind of sort of, well, issues in a sense, when we need substitutes, people get sick or maybe they're taking some time away, one of our challenges has been really to have substitutes who can come in and step in and really do what, you know, we need them to do. And we've had a couple of in-person subs who have essentially feel like full-time staff members this year. They've really come in and helped us out, but substitutes have been a challenge. Thankfully, Gillian has managed to work wonders throughout the year, and we're actively trying to improve the situation all the time. So we've got by so far, and we hope to keep going, but we've got admin and other different mechanisms. We've set up our systems for a bit of flex to support us through any potential mass absences, or at least somewhat, you know, unscheduled absences. Speaking of scheduling, that has been the story of the year. We've not just done it once, twice. It feels like we've had about 5 iterations of every schedule we've done. And as Rebecca said, all those different layers of support, tier 2, tier 3, you know, there's just so much work that goes into this. And I won't really talk about that because Rebecca went over the arrival dismissal piece. You know, it's such a complex process, so many revisions, but all good learning, all good fun. And when students have needed to move class, that's been one of the big taxing elements of this process. Right now, we're only able to move students because we kind of have, well, I'll back up. We're having kind of a shift in some parents are kind of shifting thinking and saying, hey, can I send my student back into school in person learning? I've had a change of mind, change of family circumstance. Can we get back into the classroom? We're really trying to make that possible. We're trying to get as many people that we can house within our safe guideline numbers in each class, but there are beginning to be grade levels where we're running out of in-person spaces. So we will try and accommodate parents who do maybe have a change of heart, but really we can only go so far. And obviously each one of these changes has a huge ripple effect on all our systems, all of our kind of paperwork and all that kind of stuff that the office really is engaged in. So whilst we will try and meet needs, we've only got certain limited in-person spaces that we can offer. And if that goes up and we get, you know, if we're going to put, start again, we're going to, as a grade level fills up, we'll create a waiting list. And if, you know, for some reason the ratios looked like we could trigger an extra class, then we'd certainly consider maybe bringing a class of in-person learners back into the building if that's what the need was, etc. But that's obviously a decision that you don't want me to spend 5 minutes flailing on about right now.
John, can I interrupt?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
So do you think that your numbers, I know Slade was saying before, and then we knew it was like 70-30, almost 70, sort of like what it was like last time I heard it was like 68 or something like that. Do you think is now at 70? Or are you like climbing closer to like 75 or?
I would say so, because I ran the data earlier, and it looks, we've had a shift of 20 parent requests from remote into in person. So, you know, that's a significant shift. We've had others where we've maybe spoken to the families and explained, hey, this option may work out better for your student if you're willing to come in. So we've had some other moves as well as, you know, there's just been a few different reasons, people coming out of homeschool, you know, we're having all kinds of different people joining us, but we've had significant changes. And to be fully transparent, we've had 19 parent requests to join us, and we've had 3 go the other way as well. So three families decided we had an in-person spot, but things have changed, maybe something health at home, and we want to switch to the distance learning. So we've had a little bit of both, but predominantly the shift has been to the in-person classes. Great. And I'll just wrap up this slide, but I think the final point kind of talks to, I really want to talk about the second to last point, because you know what, it's about time to kind of beat our chest and have some pride about what has been achieved, not only in our amazing relaunch, well, not our amazing, it's yet to be seen, I suppose, but our promising restart to in-person learning is off to a cracking start, but really the great distance program that we've got in place, it's just something to be proud of, and I don't think it gets enough recognition in terms of the kind of how we've met families' needs in these difficult times, and maintaining both those and launching one, you know, and now we'll be in the maintain mode is a great challenge. It's like it's 2 schools in one with completely different needs in a sense, and I think, you know, that's a challenge we're up for. And I think we've got all the kind of groundwork, the foundations are really set well. And I think the signs that we saw from last week with our in-person program, it seems to be turning out to be a bit of a dream, but maybe I've just jinxed us for next week. So hopefully not, but everything's super positive at this point in time. Even though this is a challenging slide, it leaves us with many positives and many, you know, inner beliefs in what we can achieve at Chautauqua. Next slide, please, Jody. And I'll leave it back to Rebecca.
Okay, thank you. It's our last slide here. We just wanted to say thank you to everyone, because it takes a huge team. And so it made a huge health collaboration team with CMAR and the pharmacy and, you know, community organizations to get people vaccinated so quickly when we were able to. But really our facility staff, our custodial staff, our office staff, our teachers and paraeducators, support staff, our parents in their collaboration and communication. I mean, it's been kind of amazing. Even neighbor care at the high school, you know, we've had to work to get kids' vaccinations up to date, because they're not COVID, they're other vaccinations, because we didn't do the normal push we do in September. I mean, so it's just every little piece of this has taken a big piece of the community. Community resources, working with PI, the schools, to get so many resources from our families, the Vashon Schools Foundation. We're still running art programs through Vashon Artists in Residence, and some of them had to switch midway through a residency. We're swapping to in-person, and so kind of adjusting those programs. And so it's just been the amazing amount of collaboration with our community childcare partners, with Vashon Kids and Camp South. Like, they both accommodated for kids to come morning or afternoon, and that's taken a lot of adjustment for them to do that. We're coordinating with counseling through neighbor care and VOFS still. And so, and just our admin team, I mean, we've just been working really collaboratively with everyone, including the school board and the unions, and our family. It's just, if my family is any indicator of that, I know I worked on this slideshow with my daughter, and because, you know, it's been a lot of work at home getting this done in the evenings too. And she helped me with this thank you slide. And I was like, who else should we thank? And she's coming up with people and ideas. And she's like, oh, what about PI? They gave you all that great stuff. And with the union and the school board, I bet she's 8 years old and she's pulling out union and school board before I did. I was like, I was about to say that, honey, but like, as an 8-year-old, like these kids, they understand systems. Like they're helping, like she's helping out. So it takes a team. So we really appreciate that. And it's a journey. But based on how the last 2 weeks have gone with preschool and special education and kindergarten, I think we are going to have a fabulous Monday.
Yeah, I'm excited about next Monday. And Rebecca, is that an orca mask that you're wearing?
There you go, masks for Vashon. We got orca masks for the whole school.
Great. Any other questions before we let Rebecca and John go for the evening?
I have a question. I don't know if others shall, trying to make it brief, but I want to commend you, John and Rebecca, and your amazing team. I don't think any of us who weren't as involved could even begin to imagine all the planning and thought and labor and complexities that were involved. But I'm thinking about, you know, questions that came up during that Q&A, and it's amazing how smooth it is, because oftentimes it's in the beginning where there's so many hiccups and bumps. So I think that's a really good sign. But didn't you guys observe at a school? Am I recalling that? And I was curious, did you find that through those observations, you know, because who wants to recreate a wheel if you don't have to? But in following your presentation, I'm just trying to imagine how so much of what was involved for you was tailored to our even physical space that you were working with. So I was just curious, how much did you feel like you were able to translate from what maybe was learned and observed what another school who'd already been doing it that was effectively, that you were able to, you know, bring over? Or was it a lot of just having to start from scratch really and coming up with it together with the teachers and the whole team?
I think a lot of it is individualized, but a lot of it, yeah, we have been listening and learning from other schools. And so there's some specifics, like little things, like we were trying to think, like, how do we translate our soul strings? And when we visited the school in Sultan, like they did stickers instead. And I was like, well, that's a great idea. We'll do stickers. And that's worked out great. And so, and they gave us a list of like all the videos they made for helping kids when they came into school. And so, or the things that teachers needed to teach, even if they didn't have videos. And so we had this checklist we went through. And then of course we gave that checklist to our staff and our PBS team, and we just improved it tenfold from there. You know, we made videos for everyone, and we having something to start with was super important. And so, yeah, I would say it was very helpful. It was also just helpful as a confidence booster. I mean, just to see like, okay, this can work. And the things they told us, like, yeah, you're worried about masks. Masks are not going to be a problem. Like, you're worried about this. No, that's not going to be a problem. Like it gave us a little confidence, which was huge, but also they just, yeah, sharing their checklists and resources. I mean, that was actually quite helpful. It's not, you don't have to totally invent everything from scratch. Like we are finding resources from across the nation and from local as well.
And we'll hear more about secondary as well, kind of visiting with Enumclaw, and Bainbridge has also made an offer for our secondary staff to visit, and there's a peer-to-peer learning upcoming as well. So we take advantage of every expert near us. So
I love that collaboration.
Absolutely. Educators are renowned for sharing, right? So, yeah. And so thank you very much, Rebecca, for that, and John as well. And I'm going to move us forward. I know we're anxious to move through our agenda tonight. We invited Andy Sears back to our board meeting tonight. I see him in our corner here. You're over there. I don't know where you are for other folks, but you're over here. And Andy, could you take a few moments just to share with us what's happening with athletics? What's standing out to you? We're about to finish, kind of one of our first seasons back. It seems like it's gone by in a blink of an eye. I'll share with you, my own son has had a wonderful experience, even though the first home, cross country meet was in the pouring rain, but I loved it. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more from you about where we are and where we're headed and what you see as kind of coming up for us in the near future.
Yeah, thank you. So I first want to recognize our student athletes, our coaches, our fans for their diligence with our protocols and safety measures, and just continuing to go the above and beyond just to make our student athletes safe. And speaking of that cross country meet in the pouring rain, when we hadn't had any rain for weeks, it seemed like our coaches went out, mapped out a new course just for this meet. That was different than what we've done in the past, which allowed for greater room for athletes to move in the course rather than being on the trails. and whatnot. So it took a tremendous amount of time and effort, but it made for a great day. And that's just one example across all of our sports that I see our coaches doing. And so it's been, like I said, it's just been awesome to see it. We have no reported cases in athletics going all the way back to August when we started our small group workouts. And I just think that, again, that's the diligence of our coaches, our student athletes, and the fans and parents. So, you know, I don't feel like we've had to send anyone home because they have any symptoms, but we've had numerous times where student athletes have pulled themselves out and stayed away until they could be tested or could be investigated further. So I think it's awesome. As Slade mentioned at the high school, next week we'll be wrapping up our first season. All of our teams will be playing in the culminating event in the Nisqually League Championships, our league tournaments and whatnot next week, which we're excited about. And I know our student athletes are excited about playing in a tournament, a culminating event to wrap up this first season. We're doing registrations for our second season. We'll move forward with our spring sports next, our traditional spring sports. So baseball, fast pitch softball, track and field, girls tennis will be up next. Again, more outdoor sports. And so we're excited about that. Like I said, we're doing registrations for that right now. So it's an exciting time. It's been awesome. And I'm proud of our teams and I'm proud of our student athletes.
What kind of participation are you seeing, Andy? I'm just,
you know, I don't have exact numbers for you, but for the most part, we've been in line at the high school. At the high school level, we've been in line with what we've done in the past. In fact, in football, we're even bigger than we were last year. We've had little bit lower numbers at the middle school level. I'm interested to see, as I should mention, the middle school level is moving into their second season in the next week or so. I'm interested to see if that trend continues of being a little lower as we move into the second season at McMurray. We started, just by how the calendar started, right at midwinter break, unfortunately, for their first season. And so kind of threw off the getting things going. It threw off, you know, getting physicals done at the different clinics and whatnot. So I'm hopeful, and you know, I think hearing this good news that we've been able to do this safely, I think it's going to improve our participation as well.
Thanks, Andy. Questions from the board tonight for Andy about athletics?
The McMurray soccer, were they able to launch?
Yeah, absolutely. They're going good. In fact, you know, it turned out we got up to 14 student athletes for the McMurray soccer, and those sixth grade, you know, I think if we would have started today, we'd probably be all 7th and 8th grade, but those 6th graders kind of helped us get going and help us get our season going, which is what we wanted, and take off. And we knew we were going to get a few more as we moved along. So we're excited about that. Thank you.
I don't think I've seen my son as excited and happy as when he came home from his first football practice, and then to get to watch in the stands. It was really fabulous. So thank you for all the hard work to make provide these opportunities for kids. My question is, so there's capacity in the stands, and I appreciate that and the safety. But I think there were maybe 2 tickets per player. And I was just curious about that, because I was thinking there was a lot of room in the stands. And I was wondering, like, I wonder if they sort of have a number. And then if other people want to come, if not, you know, like not everyone uses their tickets, they could try to get in to watch, because it was a small crowd, you know, and just so I was curious about that.
Yep. So we're currently in phase 2. We're limited to 200 spectators, 200 people in the stadium, including players, coaches, officials, cheerleaders, game management staff. And so for most of our events, we've been well under that. We did send out some guidelines that we were allowing 2 guests per student athlete for most of our events. Which hasn't been a problem. When we do something like football, though, it gets a little bit more tricky. And then oftentimes, as we're planning ahead, we don't know how many the other team are going to bring. We're trying to be as equitable as possible in allowing everyone to have 2. If we went where everyone was allowed 3, we wouldn't quite have enough room. I did address our teams, and I wanted them to think of these as like virtual tickets. So if you had grandma and grandpa in town and they wanted to come to the game, try to get those virtual tickets from from another player who wasn't going to have any guests for that game. I will report we haven't turned anybody away. We've been under that level. As Slade mentioned, though, we're going to phase 3, which is going to increase our capacity for events, which is going to be great. And I don't anticipate we would have any issues moving forward. Yeah, it's not the same. You know, we have a great student body. It's been sad that we haven't fully unleashed them to come to our games. That's part of the experience of high school athletics, is not only playing, but being a fan and rooting on your fellow classmates. And we haven't been able to do that. And that's been one of the sadder parts. We haven't been able to have the band at our games. It's been a sad part as well. But we're excited to maybe move through some of that in our next seasons.
Bob, did you unmute for a question or comment?
I thought better of making it.
Thank you, Bob. I do have a couple of teams I want to point out as we move into the playoffs. Our girls soccer team finished second in league. They'll be hosting a playoff game next Wednesday here at the stadium. We're excited about that. They'll be in the semifinals of our league championships. Our boys tennis team is undefeated this season in league play, and they'll be having their league championships next Friday and Saturday. So we're excited about them moving forward. I wanted that same cross country meet, Madeline Yarkin, a freshman, placed first in that meet. We're excited for her. So there's a lot going on. I think, you know, there's different levels of success on the scoreboard and the standings, but it's been a huge success that we've been safe and can continue to do these things. So
Andy, exciting. How did the girls do tonight? Girls soccer.
They won tonight. When I slipped away for the meeting, they're up 3-0. So we're excited about that.
That's right.
Yeah, they're good.
Last time to get Seattle Christian.
Yeah, so
they're back on the game.
They've had a great season, and it's a pretty young team. And yeah, we recognized our 2 seniors tonight. So it was exciting. So we're doing it along with phase 3. It will also give us the go ahead to move in with some of our high risk or higher contact, higher risk sports indoors like basketball and wrestling. So we'll welcome those back in the spring in our 3rd season at both McMurray and the high school by moving into stage 3 or phase 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great news.
Great.
Yeah. I'll leave it with this. We've been trying to think outside the box. We weren't sure. We got the announcement today when we were trying to think outside the box about how we could do wrestling and basketball and give these kids at least one event where they could be recognized, or seniors could be recognized and whatnot. And I was sitting down with Mr. Bloomgren and we're like, I think we should try an outdoor wrestling match on the 50-yard line and doing it. And it was funny when after Governor Inslee's press conference, I texted him and he said, I still want to do it. So we'll still,
sure, you guys,
yeah. Yeah. So it's exciting. We were trying to think outside the box, and then we have this opportunity where it's the only time where we could actually do a wrestling match outdoors because we're in the spring and are pushing, late into the year. So maybe we'll do some fun things as we move forward, but we just want to try to give as good of experience as we possibly can. So
yeah, that's awesome, Andy. Hey, thanks for the update.
All right.
Thank you guys. That. Thank you, coaches, for everything they're doing. The morale is huge.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right.
Good stuff. This next part of my longest ever report in the world tonight will be just taking a look at the calendar. As you know, we are still kind of on this cycle where we're going to be starting before Labor Day. So if you take a look, we're going to be starting on the 30th of August, similar to this year. Our spring break is going to be on the 11th. So that's important to note. So we really kind of came to that conclusion just recently because of the late President's Day. So if we were to have it on the 4th, which it was originally planned, we're going to have some compressed timing between that President's Day, midwinter break, and spring break. And so we extended that out. It's also in line with what some of our local regional, most of the regional districts are using that second full week in April as their spring break. No surprises in terms of Thanksgiving or anything else. just something for the board to know and be aware of in terms of our school start date and we'll Jody, if you scroll down, you'll see our end time, our end date. Great. Keep going, almost there, right. So our last day is on the 16th, and with a few snow days at the end, and of course that March day is a potential snow day too. So nothing too probably interesting, but families start making their plans early, right? And that's, so we want to make sure we get this information out to folks as soon as possible, and staff start making plans also. So any questions about the calendar? And then we'll move on to some upcoming events, and then we'll push off to the rest of our agenda.
Just seemed like the two biggest changes was the midwinter break in February is very at the end of the month, and then the shift of spring break. But that's just a calendar nuance, right?
Those are right, exactly. That just kind of happens, and so
glad we're not canceling Thanksgiving.
Right, we're not canceling Thanksgiving. Okay, and upcoming events. You know, we have some. The next board meeting is the 25th. I just want to appreciate the board for spending a couple Tuesdays in the last month, right, with our workshops. But moving forward, we'll essentially have board meetings, our break, and then there'll just be one board meeting in April, which is April 22nd. So I would anticipate a fairly large agenda for that night, since there's only one board meeting that evening. So, but we'll try to, you know, Zabet and Toby and I will try to plan it such that it is, we are economical with our time. So, all right, thank you. That's it for my board report. It only took an hour.
Yes, wow. It was good though. It was a lot of information.
A lot of information. It's important.
A lot of information that we all needed to have. So I'm glad we spent the time doing that.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's do board member comments. Toby, you want to start off?
Yeah, I'm good. Happy to be here tonight. Good to see everyone again. I look forward to doing this in person.
Okay. Spring?
I just wanted to say that I felt like we had a really wonderful board workshop together a couple of days ago, as Toby was alluding to, focusing on racial equity and our racial equity statement. Stay tuned for that, everybody, and also your input as we're ramping up. Well, I don't know about ramping up since it's going to be in the fall, but as we're preparing for our strategic plan process. So that felt really good, and just wanted everybody to know that we're working in behind the scenes with that, or not even behind the scenes. There were people who were present with us from the public, so that was great too.
Right. Okay. Or maybe I should do what Mary does. Bob, and then Reagan.
I got nothing.
Okay, Reagan.
Tonight I'm going to offer a poem. I'm going to offer a poem to our staff, and our students, and our board, and our community at this moment, because it, for me, captured the essence of the moment. This is a poem by Edgar Albert Guest called "It Couldn't Be Done." Somebody said that it couldn't be done, but he with a chuckle replied that maybe it couldn't, but he would be one who wouldn't say no till he tried. So he buckled right in with a trace of a grin on his face. If he worried, he hid it. He started to sing as he tackled the thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. Somebody scoffed, "Oh, you'll never do that. At least no one has ever done it." But he took off his coat and he took off his hat, and the first thing we knew, he'd begun it. With a lift of his chin and a bit of a grin, without any doubting or quit it, he started to sing as he tackled the thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. There are thousands to tell you it cannot be done. There are thousands to prophesy failure. There are thousands to point out to you one by one the dangers that wait to assail you. But just buckle in with a bit of a grin. Just take off your coat and go to it. Just start in to sing as you tackle the thing that cannot be done, and you'll do it.
That is the perfect poem.
That's awesome. Thanks, Reagan.
Thank you for that. I don't have anything else to say, really. I mean, besides just really thanks to Mary Furtakis, who led those racial equity. And I think that I echo that. I think that we did some good work, and it's a first of many good steps to get this a district where we think it should be.
Was there going to be a link to like a survey, feedback survey or something that she asked us to fill out? Did we get it? Okay, I'll go dig for it. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, so legislative session update. So Slade and I, we are going to be meeting next week with Greg, Allison, and Ella and Mead are coming with us. And we have meetings with Eileen Cody and Joe Wynn to talk about, there are 3 areas that WASDA, WASA, and WASBO are focused on this round. Student well-being, oh my God, Slade, I'm losing my mind. Well, I don't have my notes in front of me, you can tell. Financial stabilization, and what's the third? I know the third. Student well-being.
Graduation.
Oh, graduation and pathways, different pathways, yeah. So this is our week on the Hill that we usually do a long time ago. And so it's sort of weird because we're in the session is things are moving fast right now in the session. So it's a little odd to be doing it now, but it's all good. It's all for the good. And I'm actually really looking forward, I think Slade is too, just having having our 2 board reps there to really we're going to actually have them speak about mental health, because the Riptides, those great articles in the Riptide, and it's so important. It's so crucial. I mean, if COVID has shown us anything, it's that we need to focus so much more on mental health and counseling and all whatnot in the schools, basically like pre-K to 12. So that's what we're going to do next week. And so we'll see what happens. Slade, what else do you want to add?
Not much. I think it's important to note that, we had a great meeting today with Ella, Mead, and Greg in preparation for next week. And it really is pointing to this ongoing conversation that we've been having with our legislators around the prototypical funding model, and how districts, in our state are constantly underfunded in regards to staffing around counseling, staffing around psychologists, staffing around nursing staff. And so while this may not be the year where legislators are tackling the prototypical funding model, we feel it's just as important to have our students, step up and speak to these mental health and well-being issues. And this will be a continuing narrative. Maybe prototypical funding model may not, maybe it's not going to be on next year's agenda. But I've learned from WASA and WASDA and AWSP that even if something's not on the agenda, that might be even the opportunity to really stand up even and speak, put the megaphone to our kind of most influential voices, and put exclamation points on the issues around student mental health and well-being. So that is going to be our focus. Certain bills are falling away to the wayside. We saw 5326, which was going to mandate insurance benefits for folks who we contract with. It sounds like a great idea, but it's a mandated expense on districts. That failed to move through its House by the Tuesday deadline, so that fell by the wayside. The budget stabilization and pupil transportation, those are kind of in conjunction with our ESSER 2 funds, and so we will be getting significant resources from the the legislation that was passed nationally, but the stabilization and pupil transportation bills may not have that significant of an impact on us. So we feel it's important right now to really focus on the mental health and well-being narrative and the stories that our students are going to share with our legislators next week. I appreciate you for setting that up.
Yeah, and yeah, of course, and also I just want to appreciate what everyone down in Olympia is doing in terms of trying to be as flexible and as possible with realizing the really challenging situations that schools are going through. I mean, listening to John and Rebecca talking about how they're spending money on now really having a hard time in spending money on substitutes, which has been great. We haven't had to spend money on substitutes, but now we are, and so there's that. And then the MSOCs with all the having to buy all the stuff for different for pod A and pod B,
PPE,
like all that kind of stuff. And so just recognizing, we will definitely thank our representatives and senator for recognizing that, and that we're not the only school district who's obviously going through all this stuff, and graduation and the challenges of students trying to graduate. And it's just super complicated, as we all know. So I think there'll be a lot of gratitude, but I'm really glad, and I'm really glad that Ella and Mead will come. I think they're going to be fantastic. So
any questions from the board for Zabet and I? Okay.
All right.
Well, I would say the board, you have a fantastic legislative representative in Zabet. She is all about it. So
yes, that's right. I don't think that's misguided, but okay. So
in-person board meetings.
So we have gotten the go ahead that we can do this. We're excited, to say it mildly. I really want to be in the same room as all of you. Bob, I want to be in the same room as you.
If I had a nickel for every time I heard that.
So, and I mean, and so there's in my brain, there are two sides to this. One is can we do this safely? Are we allowed to do this? What is the recommendation from WASDA? There's all of that. And then and also importantly to me is, and to all of us, is like John Stanton and his team, and how can we get, the public to really be able to have access, and all of that, and can they do that? And according to Slade, they are, of course, Team Stanton is ready to rock and roll.
Right. We do have the mechanisms in place to provide kind of overflow. If we were to have an overflow experience, I believe we can fit 68 community members. If we are still in phase 2, which I'm not anticipating us to be, but we'll just say we are going to be in phase 2. And so with that, the capacity would be 68 folks in total into the VHS auditorium. John and Jody met yesterday, the day before, to go over all the logistics, mics, who's going to wipe mics down, cleaning, sign-in sheets, everything from this FAQ is being addressed, just to let you know. So we want the board not to worry about that. Of course, we want you to, be able to ask questions, and if you have them, certainly answer. But every safety measure and protocol, if you saw Rebecca's planning as any kind of indicator about what we're capable of, that's what we're doing for in-person board meetings as well. Because it will be a hybrid. We'll still stream it. Folks will still have access to it. We'll have an extra classroom available if there is overflow. So we're going to follow all the guidelines set forth in WASDA and make sure that we're safely following these our regular protocols. I think we're going to do something extra. I don't believe that any of the protocols actually ask for attestations, but we're going to ask for attestations for community members who are going to be attending. So similar to what you might do at a dentist appointment or an eye appointment, where you'll be asked questions and we'll do a temperature check. Amy right now, Cicera, is working with John to actually kind of hire or offer some hours to a student. I think we have some students who might be interested. We've had students who help us before in board meetings. We're going to bring on some students to help us with some of these kind of in-person tasks. So I'm super positive about it. I'm excited. We're going to plan on the 25th. If anything changes, obviously we know how to do this. So that won't be a big shift, but hopefully we'll move to in-person. I don't think we need to do any practice. You probably will be asked to come a little earlier. Okay, so I know sometimes when we have a regular meeting, we're kind of coming in, and spring, you'll just have to do what you're able to. I know sometimes, I don't know if you're gonna be remote or in the city, but we'll try to get everybody situated earlier, because that helps us move the meeting forward in terms of, getting all the protocols in place to allow time for our public to come in. So we don't know who's going to show, kind of who would want to come in person, but we'll make sure that we're well prepared.
Okay.
Just any discussion or questions?
Nothing. Spring.
Just one. I think as I was reading over like Q&A and that announcement, initially there was something about, do you guys remember, for anyone who wanted to provide a public comment, if we resume in person, you can't submit your public comment anymore. You have to do it in person if meetings are in person. No, I thought I saw that.
I don't remember seeing that. So
it really caught my attention. So
sure.
We might need to just look at that and get clarification, because I remember something about it.
Sure. In Wednesday's meeting with our soups, some soups reported out about their in-person board meetings, and they reported that they had in-person and still opportunities for folks while we're in hybrid. I don't think, if there is a recommendation, I would say if it's a recommendation, we still accept, I would recommend that we still accept written comments until we're fully in person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't.
That's good to know. Right. Good to know.
Yeah.
There are minimums, and we can exceed the minimums at our choosing by making it more accessible.
Right.
Make that clear with the public that everybody knows.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So my days of reading comments may not be over.
Okay. Wait. Oh, my computer. Okay. Thank you, Jody.
Great.
Oh yeah. Dr. McSheehy.
Great. So Matt will be with me on this if there's questions, but I know the board members have had an opportunity to review the budget assumptions and priorities. This is I think Toby, you described it as a budget preamble, kind of a set of conditions, around our budget. And so this evening is meant to have any further discussion around these. I know last year, if I remember correctly, Bob, the number 10, we saw a change of wording to, I think, to fund to prioritize. I remember the word prioritize was an addition. I believe it came from you. So from time to time, there are edits to this page, additions, revisions. I believe Toby, I think, was interested in, I'll let you share your suggestion, Toby, instead of me just sharing it for you.
Yeah, thanks. My understanding of this document is that it's not necessarily a priority from 1 to 10, but they're all the same, and therefore, to eliminate any question about that, I was going to suggest that we just make them bullet points rather than numbered.
Good suggestion.
Mm-hmm. And so for me, this is an opportunity for any further discussion, because if you remember, Matt we bring up these pages in the budget in sequence, so that when we present the budget to you towards the end of May, that you've had a chance to view and see every page of the budget. So any edits, suggestions, revisions, this will be the evening where we kind of take on this particular part of our budget.
I think that I'm just curious about, I don't think I have a strong opinion, but I think of assumptions and priorities as different and everything's sort of clumped together. So I guess I'm just kind of wondering a little bit about that. And if there's a way to distinguish somehow, what is an actual budget assumption and what do we mean by that, right? I don't know if that comes up for anyone else, but.
It's just an accounting term.
Okay. But they're very different. They have different meanings to me. So if I'm not an accountant, then that's fine.
What you said resonates with me. An assumption seems to be almost like a given. It is a given that we will have a 6.5% fund balance versus a priority is we're going to prioritize spending on this. So I don't to your comment, I don't know.
Like an assumption in an accounting sense is more like a foundational key for reading the rest of the document. So they're telling you before you get into all this data that follows, this is the things that it's founded upon and that were assumed as part of how it was constructed.
Like I give it, was it? Yeah.
There's Matt.
We could easily change the title if that makes it more palatable, but Reagan's right on in regard to the accounting term and how we define that.
Yeah, no, I think it was just helpful to hear that. So clarification, thanks.
Yeah, we were talking about this, Toby, Slade and I, about if there was a way that we could sort of organize these in a way that makes sense. But I remember like, it's like a hodgepodge was the word that I remembered from our meeting, or like, it's just sort of this like, don't forget this, like basically like Reagan's saying, like it's a, and then we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to assume this and that. So I think putting bullet points is brilliant, and I think that's about it.
I had a comment about, I have had a long and troubled relationship with student fees. And I'm generally, I have long felt that if it's required, if it's a curricular requirement, that we should not charge a fee. Just throwing this out here, because in past years when this has been raised, we usually fall back on our scholarships, et cetera, but to get a scholarship means you have to ask for it. And some families may not want to ask for it. Some families may want to stretch their budget further than they should to do it. And so I just wanted to see if anybody else has any interest in, I would love to see fees for anything that's required to graduate, or if it's certainly a credit-bearing class that we consider not charging our students. Remember, we always talk about fully funding education. It goes both ways.
Matt, how many classes are there classes, required classes that we charge for? I mean, there's like art, there's material fees.
We actually, as part of the budget adoption process and review cycle, in one of our meetings, we go into detail on the student fees, and I think we have the opportunity at that point to interrogate kind of by class even. And I think that I agree with you philosophically, Bob, but I think that's the place where we have that conversation and make any recommendations or changes to the budget there.
Well, it could be also an assumption though, or a priority that we can assume, or whatever, if the correct term is, that we will not charge fees for, I'm not talking about athletics, and I'm not sure exactly what the universe that I am talking about is without looking at the fee schedule. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there as something that we consider, because there's equity issues here.
Yeah, but I think it's good to remember that all this is just like the key to the rest of the document. And I assume we're talking about number 7. And all that says is a fee schedule will be included as part of the budget adoption proposal. If the fee schedule says 0 fees, it's still a schedule that's included. So I think Toby's right. We get to talk about what the fees are at a later point, and then the schedule of fees, whatever they are or not, will just be included as part of the budget document.
But how does that square? I mean, number 10 does number 10 says we are going to prioritize this. And maybe number 10 needs to go, but I was just trying to pick on a parallel structure for that. It would be that we will not charge students fees for anything required to graduate, or for, I don't know what the universe is, but number 10 stands out as something where it is runs counter to that argument for consistency reasons.
So I know, I don't, Bob, doesn't number 10 strike you as such a broader, like for number 10, it seems like there's nowhere else in the budget that where we could clarify something about number 10, whereas number 7, there is a place to go into the weeds and clarify. Is that right? Am I right there?
All number 10 is saying to me is that when we developed our budget for our school district, we prioritized maintenance to protect district assets above other things when appropriate. So there doesn't have to be a schedule with that, and it doesn't talk about a schedule. It's a philosophy that we're assuming as part of our budget foundation that we prioritize maintenance to protect the assets. That's what I get out of it.
But we could have a philosophy to not charge student fees because of the equity impacts, or, I mean, you're talking about an expense versus a revenue.
Right. But for that, Bob, then there wouldn't be word schedule in number 7. They're talking about a schedule,
I'm talking about getting rid of 7. What I was suggesting is we totally rewrite 7 and say student fees, we shall not charge fees to students.
I understand, because you're talking about fees, and the number 7 is talking about a schedule of fees, which could be zero fees. So all number 7 is saying is there'll be a schedule. You're talking about getting right to what the fees are going to be, which I agree should be done, but not in the assumptions to a budget document.
Okay. I will withdraw my request and revisit this when we talk about the schedule.
This has been actually a fascinating conversation. I actually think number 10 should not be in this list. For me, it's the one that's, I like it philosophically, but I don't think it fits this list. Otherwise, you start opening the Pandora's box to other broader things. It becomes a manifesto. We'll be adding, we're going to prioritize our budget with a racial equity lens and other things that are important to us. But the other ones are more around the accounting methodology, where 10 does feel like it's more of it's the only one that's kind of that we're making an emphasis on that. I don't know. Now that I've read it again, that's the one that doesn't fit for me.
Well,
and I don't have
but I know why it's there. You know why it's there, Toby. It's because everyone chews on us, and every time we have a bond come up about how we're not maintaining our buildings, et cetera, et cetera. So I bet at some point somebody put it in there to
that was me.
Help
guide our on it at the time too. But so anyhow, I think that's interesting.
It's almost like it belongs in our strategic plan, as well as here potentially.
Well, I feel like we're at the end of the road with this. Does anyone else have anything specific here? Like, I'm appreciating Bob planted that seed. I don't feel strongly about 10. I'm really more curious maybe what Matt, maybe if he has thoughts about it, but I'm seeing the difference with, it's not a document about expressing or stating our values as a district. It's more really tied to the budget. And so, but without not focused on our values and priorities in the way that I was thinking about priorities. So I'm ready to move on. Is everyone else? Matt, I wanted to hear from you. Sorry.
Just one thing, we will be discussing student fees at the April 22nd meeting. So we have that opportunity then.
This, I think, just back to Toby's point, I think all of our points, this document was a zebra or a camel or whatever. It was created by committee over a period of years, and it is a mishmash of various things. So I don't think we should think of it as a gospel anything. It was created by humans over 20 years, and maybe someday we'll want to get it right.
That's a great point, Bob. That I was going to say that, but you said it for me. So
Much more eloquently, I'm sure.
absolutely. So I'll just put an exclamation point to what you said. Okay, moving forward then, Matt, you have a presentation or update for the VYFS VISD lease renewal for a first, I can't remember.
This is for a decision.
Second reading.
Right, this is a second reading. So.
Second reading.
Were there any changes?
No, there wasn't.
Okay, so I'm assuming that everyone has looked at this and thought about it, and could I get a motion?
I move we approve it.
Second?
I second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, great. Okay,
This is a pretty well written one.
yeah,
Assessment.
yeah, and this
Absolutely.
is a great relationship, and we are very thankful for them, so.
I've been
Okay, so-
incredibly, if I may, I've been incredibly pleased to work with Jenny Johnson over there. It's been a wonderful few months developing this and working with her.
Awesome.
Great, yeah, yeah, from everything I've heard, she's a superstar, so.
I have a question about the consent agenda, but I can't remember if we pass it and then I ask a question.
No,
Just
we could, we put a motion out and then we discuss the motion and then we can vote on the motion.
All right.
What you're supposed to, consent agenda is supposed to be approved, and as it is,
Yeah,
please
so,
pull it up, make a motion to pull whatever out.
yeah, Toby, what do you want to talk about?
In the ASB club, I was just wondering who the advisor was. I couldn't read this signature. It was great. I read through it. I was like, this looks really great, but I don't know what principal that is. I assume it's Danny because this is a high school club.
It's Gus, Andrew Gus.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, Kara Weber's the advisor. Okay, good.
Right. Yeah.
All right. I saw the signature and I was like, but I couldn't read it. All right. I was just trying to track along. This is really cool.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only
Okay.
question I had.
Also, thank Sally Adam for her very nice letter, retirement letter, and sorry to see her go. And we will talk about everybody who's retiring because we have so many awesome teachers who are retiring, sadly, really sadly. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Anyone? Anyway, thank you. And a second? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Bob?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Consent agenda passes. Any new business? Okay, so we are going to, it is not a, it's called a executive
Secret
session.
meeting, I believe it's called.
It's not a secret meeting. It is by law, we do an executive session to discuss the performance of an employee, and we do not discuss that in public. So that is not a secret meeting. And so we will adjourn.
Just a quick reminder to the board that there's a, Jody sent out an initial link. As we found with Zoom, we can't open up that link and still continue the regular board meeting here. So what's going to happen is I created a second Zoom link. You should receive probably 2 emails later today with that link in it. You'll use that link for an executive session. That way, Jody will be able to keep this session open. And then Zabet, you just want to let the public know about how long we're going to take.
My guess is that we'll be about 20 minutes, 30 at the most. So 9:15, 9:20 is my guess. So are we gonna, is the board gonna X out of this meeting?
Correct.
And then we'll come back into this meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
And Jody will keep it open for us until we come back.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Thank you. Bye. Bye, public, if we don't see you when we come back.
And Jody, it looks like I need to make you the host, because if I, Okay, I made you the host, Jody, so I'm gonna leave and
Okay,
go
thank
to
you.
my other meeting.
Thank you. I'll be here.
Great. Jody, you may have to move Toby into the meeting and Spring into the meeting. There's a bet.
That was exciting trying to find the right email again.
I know, huh?
Yeah. Okay, are we all back? I can't get my screen.
I just see Reagan as well, Jody. There you go. Okay.
Is Reagan in?
Reagan's in.
Reagan's in. And we really lost Bob?
I think we might have lost Bob.
I think we still have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Okay. So all we have to do is adjourn this meeting, right?
Correct. So it's
All right.
9:39.
Well, we are, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
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 All right, thank you so much, public. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Brenda, Colby, Elizabeth. Thank you, Heather, Catherine, Lisa, Terry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Staying. What a team. What a team. All
Thanks,
right.
Thanks, everybody.
See you all soon.
Have a good night.